Okay, welcome everybody. I'll start with a prayer. We gather to make decisions for our community. May we only use our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. We acknowledge and respect the traditional owners of the ancestral lands of the South East. We acknowledge elders past and present, and we respect the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country. At this point, I also need to ensure that the meeting is being live streamed, recorded and published in accordance with the Council's live streaming and recording public meetings policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream of this recording. Before we commence the formalities today, I would like to move a condolence motion. The motion reads, the Naracoorte-Lucindale Council offer our sincere condolences to the family and friends of Brevet Sergeant Jason Doig, Officer in Charge Lucindale, who was killed while on active duty protecting his community November 17, 2023. Jason Doig was a friend and he was a really good copper. It's interesting, in the time since Jason was killed, the way that the community has come together and rallied. It's interesting that you can have people like Jason Doig move through your life and he's just there, bouncing around, being a sort of, I described him on more than one occasion in the last week as a bit of a strange cat, and he certainly was. It was suggested to me today that he may have been even on the spectrum, but it would have been Jason's. It wasn't for anybody else. He was certainly fastidious. He was a friend of everybody. It doesn't matter whether you were in the football club, whether you were at netball, whether you were a student at the Lucindale School, Jason was there for you. He wanted to ensure at all times that his community was safe, and he loved being a policeman and he loved life. Thank you. And a second to please. Councillor Goodman. Yes.
Brevet Sergeant Jason Doig. Jason, or Doigie, was our police officer in charge at the Lucindale Police Station, and he had been for more than 10 years. As a result of how he went about his policing work, Jason enmeshed himself in the community through his support of and presence at the many and varied events that are organised by Lucindale community and the surrounding district, and through his day-to-day work of caring for and protecting his community by being present, visible and available. Outside of work, he volunteered as a lifeguard at the community pool. He supported our local sporting teams, and by all accounts, he enthusiastically shared his love of motorbikes. The recent wreath-laying ceremony that was held at Lucindale demonstrated the impact that Jason's life had on the community and the appreciation that people had for the work that he did. I'd like to acknowledge Sergeant Michael Hutchinson and Constable Rebecca Cass, as well as the other emergency services and first responders involved in this incident, and thank them for their service, courage and bravery. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all the men and women of our police force who have done and continue to do the work that can require them to put themselves in danger in order to keep our community safe. Everyone deserves to come home safe from work. Brevet Sergeant Jason Doig, thank you for your service and thank you for being a part of our community.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. At this, I'll ask if there's any elected members' declaration of interest. There being none. This is also an opportunity for anyone from the public, if they would wish to make some comment to the elected members. Is there anyone who would wish to make any comment or to the elected members?
I was going to, but I'm just happy to see how the meeting progresses.
Would you like to speak? If you would like to stand up and address the meeting and tell us who you are.
Most of you probably know me. I'm Ben Crosby. I actually own Foster Engineering, which is on Hinkley Street. No doubt this is going to come up in your general business about all the town flooding and drainage and everything else. My main concern is the citizens, the residents of the houses on Hinkley Street, even on a normal winter year, have to sandbag their driveways. So there is an inherent level, the roads have been built up too high over time. My downpops off my shed don't reach the road. So any water that comes off the road, onto my block, off my shed, onto my block, the only way for it to get away is my well. We had 3 inches of water through the shed. Currently up to an estimated loss of $30,000, but I still haven't got the quote back from the electrician or the builder yet of damages. This is a regular occurrence, and I've got footage here of less than 50 mil of rain in the morning, and it was flooding onto my block before the major downpour. So if we can all work together somehow to fix these problems around town, that would be greatly assisted. Because I don't have the money to go for this again, second 2 years, 3 years time. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to have to put a pumping station in, just to make sure I keep the water off my block. So I'm at the stage where council will get a bill for pumping costs each year if we don't fix this drainage problem up properly. And that's where I'm at. I've wasted 2 years in the business, I can't afford to keep going through this stuff every year. So thank you very much for your time.
Sure. Thanks, Ben.
Sorry. Mayor, would you allow me to foreshadow a motion without notice?
I'll allow you to bring forward, to have a motion without notice at the appropriate time, but I'm happy with that, Councillor Maguire. I'd now like to introduce Colin Biles and Kate Napper to give us...
Thank you, everyone. For those that don't know me, I'm Colin Biles. I'm the interim CEO of of the Limestone Coast at LGO for about another 4 days. So on Monday, there's a new appointment being made. I've just been the interim, but been there 6 months. So I've run a few projects in time. A guy named Adrian Maywell, some of you guys would already know, Adrian's local here. He takes over that position on Monday, but I'll be staying on till Christmas to help him do a transition phase. Thank you for the invite here tonight. We just want to talk quickly about some of the major projects in the Limestone Coast LGA. That's just a small focus, but Kate's going to take most of the time talking about the tourism in destination development. That's a major interest from a lot of councils we've been finding. So if I just go through that, thanks, you. Current project, probably the biggest project we've got going at the moment and the most important project is the regional growth strategy. Right, so just some of the words up there why we're doing it: sustainable increase in living standards that deliver higher incomes, better education, health and wellbeing, as well as environmental protection resulting from a conscious and applied effort, and it's called economic development about improving the quality of life in the community. Sorry, quickly word, but that's basically why we're doing a regional growth strategy. There was one done back in 2015, that's the document you may have seen around the place on that, but it's a major thing of the growth in the Limestone Coast region. So it's been a long process. We've eventually pulled it together. It's been out to tender, and we got 12 submissions, which was a lot more than we thought. You get inquiries normally for tenders, and you think, well, what's going to? We got 12, which so there is a big interest in it, and there's some good. We've had an evaluation panel look at this, and now we're down to 2, and we're just going backwards and forwards with them, looking at what is the best thing we can do. But that project is for the whole of the region. It's how Limestone Coast can go forward in the future and with the best prospects for it. And there's good engagement with all the CEOs and mayors on this through the board. Some of the elected members probably don't know we're doing all this sort of stuff, but that is probably the biggest, most important project we're doing at the moment. Quickly, a couple of other things with materials recovery facility. This is another project that's been going on for a while. We've just had the first report from the consultants a few months ago. CEOs, directors, works managers have gone through that at the moment and looked at it and said, well, there's some issues that we need to be clarified, and our next meeting is on Monday the 11th. But that has been around, like I say, for a while. It's got some ups and downs. It needs to come to a bit of a conclusion whether it goes forward or what we do with it now. So this is a bit of a crunch time for this project, but it's got big, it can have good ramifications or bad ramifications based on where you live in the region as well, sort of stuff. So there's an economic benefit and there's an environmental benefit of doing this recovery facility. So that's going along the way. One of the other projects that's just come about, a lot of elected members might have heard of the Star Club that used to be around the place. That's now been replaced with Connected and Active Communities. A guy named Tony Ellison, who ran the Star Club and the Limestone Coast Sports Academy. So this is the new program that's actually replacing that, but it's about to aim to partner with the community to establish and foster a relationship that grows localised capacity to build and deliver impactful physical activity. So it's about community capacity and stuff. But why I put it up there is we want to show you one of the projects that's already starting to take ground is that Naracoorte, listen to Councillor DC Grant, looking at facility usage and standards analysis of all sporting and recreation facilities. That's a major project to look at all your recreation type stuff, and there is funds available to do part share of this. There will be a contribution, but that there, if that gets off the ground, and we've got some initial quotes in, and Trevor and I think Josie might have been involved with Tony in the early stages. We're still engaging with DC Grant at the moment. They're making a joint project, but that'll give you a good background of how your facilities are going and usage and all these sort of things. So it has major importance for your future. So that's just one of the projects that can come out of this other Connected and Active Communities program where in the past you think, what do these things do? This is a project that's just going to help you directly now. Stuff. Just the next one. And just the Limestone Coast Regional Sporting Academy, that's still a big elite academy of sporting sport. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. The 2024 athlete selection process is underway. Just to highlight a couple of things, this is a regional academy, and from Naracoorte, Lissondale region, in 2023 there's 11 athletes. In 2024 we've got 19 applications so far, and because this has taken off so well, it needs to work out how it can go into the future to be sustainable and actually grow and take a different level again from this elite stuff. This is the pathway between your country athletes to your city. How do you get there? All this sort of stuff. So the board's approved business case to be developed for future sustainability. Now we've just appointed a consultant today, actually, to run that process for us, and that'll be a 3 or 4 months project, and that is not costing anyone anything to run that business case. We got funding off the LGA Regional Capacity Building Program to be able to do that. So that's a good project to go forward and look at, because if in the business case we're looking at how we can get more funding, how we can make it develop, and this talks about sponsorship, about all tax deductions, all these sort of things. Can that be built so we can grow the funding for stuff? So that's another project. That's all I wanted to do, just to give you a quick outline of what some of the things happening there. Kate's going to take over. She's going to be the more entertaining one than I am.
Colin, if I may just indulge myself and thank you for being interim chair. Interim EO, and you were given some tasks that hadn't been dealt with for some period of time, and you've delivered. So thank you for doing that on behalf of the board members.
Thank you. It's been really good to come down here for 6 months and get involved and experience another part. I come from the mid-north area, sort of outside Port Pirie and Jamestown sort of way. So coming down here, it's been a different world, see different things, engage with more people. But yeah, it's been interesting. One thing I did say, didn't say, if you've got some questions, wait till after Kate, and then we can open it up if you've got time for a few more questions.
Thanks,
Thank
Colin.
you. Thank you for that.
Introducing Kate Napper.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Yes, so I'm Kate Napper. I'm the Destination Development Manager. And I guess Destination Development is a project that also fits under the banner of Colin's kind of presentation there in terms of, I'm just going to go into it in a little bit more detail. So I guess, and yes, thank you. So I guess some background just on how regional tourism came to be within LCLGA. Essentially, we behave a bit like a regional tourism organisation. So sort of advocacy work, representational role in the tourism landscape, and we work on behalf of all 7 constituent councils here in the region to deliver not only destination development but promotional activities. And how we do that is underpinned by a destination development strategy, and that strategy was endorsed in 2020 by all 7 councils, so predated me. But the idea of that strategy is to work with all of the stakeholders in the region, and there are many who have a vested interest in tourism, in order to increase the value of tourism for our region. Thank you. Essentially, the team that work on this is myself as the Destination Development Manager. We also have a part-time coordinator, so we work to deliver that strategy. And then the LCLGA Executive Officer also represents the Limestone Coast as the chair on the Regional Tourism Chairs Forum, which reports directly at a state level to the South Australian Tourism Commission. So also underpinning our strategy is a very important group called our Tourism Management Group, whom Josie is a valued member of. So we exist to strengthen that sort of regional tourism network and all work together to facilitate the implementation of the destination development strategy. So yeah, essentially a member from each council is residing on that working group. So hopefully that's just some sort of very brief context about how tourism and regional tourism works within LCLGA. Hopefully this, I'm not great at diagrams, but hopefully this tourism landscape diagram also just explains how the 7 LGAs of the Limestone Coast work within the LCLGA, or we all work together on tourism. And then as an overarching banner, we have the South Australian Tourism Commission, also with a vested interest in tourism, and then Tourism Australia at a national level. And then we have 2 key tourism industry bodies, TICSA, Tourism Industry Council of South Australia, who work in partnership with SA Tourism, and ATEC, which is the Australian Tourism Export Council, which work at a national level to drive trade and international visitors. So essentially, our project is positioned in the context of that wider tourism landscape, and all of the work that we do speaks to state and national, so driving visitation to the state and to Australia as a whole. So hopefully that just kind of, positions everything. Essentially also Tourism Australia, they work to kind of drive international visitation from 30 key markets, and at a state tourism level it's about bringing visitors to the state and sort of driving that experience level. And then us within LCLGA and our councils, we've got that real regional tourism focus of being able to understand and speak that real kind of detailed storytelling. Our strategy, the Destination Development Strategy, which I'm sure I'm going to say 10 more times and you'll be sick of hearing it, but it is positioned in the context of the South Australian Visitor Economy Sector Plan, which is issued by the South Australian Tourism Commission. They also have a regional visitor strategy, which has its own regional priorities, of which the Limestone Coast is a region within that strategy. And then our strategy, the Destination Development Strategy, sits as a nice complement to that and was developed with those other 2 key plans in mind. So our priorities sort of mapped out, and then you might have, in some cases, some councils within the region choose to have their own economic development or community plans that complement and feed into this strategy that LCLGA works to deliver for regional tourism. Thank you. And this is just a quick summary of the latest RVS, or Regional Visitor Snapshot, Progress Snapshot for the Limestone Coast. So this is at December 2022. So essentially there are some KPIs or key performance indicators or measures that the regional visitor strategy at a state level speaks to for each of the regions. And our strategy also looks at these performance metrics and works together to, I guess, how we measure our value and our contribution to driving the tourism economy for the region. So we have a target of 475 million in terms of tourism economic impact for the region. We've achieved 92% of that as at December 2022. And then we also look at things like day trips, overnight visitors, number of bed nights, and also employment for the region. So there are a whole bunch of different ways that we measure the value of tourism. And I guess I just want you to understand that we are aligning kind of the way that we think about that in our strategy at a regional level with also the way that they speak about tourism at a state tourism level. I guess now just onto our plan. There are a number of priority areas in there. This plan was developed with rigorous stakeholder engagement over sort of a 12-month period. And the priority areas, as you can see there, range from marketing, visitor servicing, right through to promoting that value of tourism. A really big one is collaboration and sort of building up industry capability. There's a lot of actions in the strategy, and as someone who's inherited the strategy, it's kind of heavy reading, and I don't expect you to take it to bed, for bedtime reading. But if you've ever got a question about it, feel free to give me a call, because I have got it kind of tattooed into my eyelids. So it's pretty broad ranging, and there's a lot of areas to cover, but it does speak to the volume and sort of breadth of stakeholders and interest in tourism for the region and the areas that we can kind of grow and work within. I guess the only other thing I'll just say just on the strategy before I dive into some very interesting stats that I'm sure you'll be keen to see, that we kind of, I guess the strategy was to 2025. We're in 2023, so we're kind of in the midway of the strategy, I guess you could say. We've had COVID in the middle there, and I guess we've also had a bit of staff changeover. So the timelines and the action plans within the strategy, I guess, have been kind of picked up and brought forward a little bit and tweaked, knowing that we are operating in just a slightly different environment post-COVID and still recovering from those lasting impacts of COVID, particularly international tourism still on the rebound. International tourism has typically represented about 7% of visitors to our region. We're a long way off kind of seeing that come back, but it does. I guess it's just pertinent to note that that strategy, I guess, whilst it's relevant, we're working in a changing landscape, and we are working to kind of continuously pivot that strategy in line with the environment we're operating in. I just wanted to touch just briefly on some of the focus areas that and areas that we've achieved in knowing that things have kind of been a shifting landscape. Just to give you some context on some of the areas that I touch on, but like I said, it's a really broad piece, and there's quite a lot I could cover, so I've just narrowed the focus for today. But in the last financial year, some key areas we've been focusing on is our digital storytelling and how we can really showcase the region, sort of that regional storytelling, because at a state level, it's very broad in the way that they pitch the region and try to drive visitors. A destination website has been a hero piece for our promotional activity in the region. That might be jargon, but it just means it's a website that represents the region that a visitor can go to and sort of uncover whatever they might need to do to plan a trip to our region. And that website is managed by LCLGA and has been, I guess, launched with the help of our working group. And so that website also has a tourism data warehouse listing, which is an API, like a connection through to lots of different businesses who are in the online world. So it's a very current, always very sort of reputable website. And we've been kind of, I guess, achieving really strong leads for visitors, for businesses in the Limestone Coast, keeping that content really up to date and current. Also, I guess we've been operating in the social media space, which also sort of dovetails into promotional activities. But we're working to grow really highly engaged social media communities in order to amplify the stories and messaging for our region. And so, as you can see there, through sort of some consistent community management, we've shared over 453 posts across the two platforms that we use, Facebook and Instagram, and have achieved 1.1 million in reach of organic reach to potential visitors to our region, which has then been reshared or further amplified to over 8 million using other key channels, and southaustralia.com is one of those, and some others are noted there. We've also introduced a local hashtag, and that continues to drive engagement for people who are looking for our region and wanting to learn about what they can do when they get here. The other has been some seasonal marketing activities, and I won't go into too much detail, but we manage the delivery of the official regional visitor guide, which has a circulation of over 50,000 units across sort of Metro Adelaide and Greater SA, and we're also going to branch into Victoria with the next edition. We've activated some outdoor billboards in Coleraine and Nil to capture or sort of lure back that cross-border Victorian visitor as our key sort of market segment. We've also worked on some collaborations with Regional Express, being a key airline that comes into our regional airport, through some editorial and paid advertising, and the same with Caravanning Australia. I guess picking those particular areas because they represent sort of key markets or high-value travellers that we know come to our region and align with the demographics and the market segments that we want to capture here. I also just want to touch on the fact that, and you've kind of probably been seeing this through the presentation, that we also are the custodians of a regional brand, which is important from a tourism perspective because it drives awareness to the region. This brand has been in market for quite a while. It was, it was developed a number of years ago, and we are consistently using that on all of the touch points with potential visitors. It's through all of our digital storytelling and so on, and it is something that we encourage operators to adopt and councils as well. So it is an open asset that comes with some guidelines in terms of use, but it is something that is gaining traction and is helping us to kind of stand out as a region through that consistent sort of application. Lastly, and I would say most importantly, is our role as sort of a collaborator or bringing the industry together, and that has been a real focus for me as I've stepped into this role kind of basically in February, and it's about kind of bringing the community back together and sparking those conversations and much stronger collaboration, because as a region we're much stronger if we're doing that together. And so just some examples here, we have a Facebook industry group which was founded sort of during COVID and has continued to grow and is a platform, and anyone is kind of welcome to join it, but essentially it's for operators or those in the tourism space to share opportunities. If they've got a challenge or an issue or what have you, they can put it out to the closed group. And then also LCO Engage sharing regular news and updates through that platform, and operators are finding quite a lot of value in having that resource there. Also introduced a industry tourism updates e-newsletter, which again is about sharing news and updates to the wider sector across the region. And operators are finding that, because it can be a very complex landscape for sure, and hence why I had that kind of tourism landscape diagram. With so many peak bodies, it can be totally kind of difficult and confusing to navigate for anyone who's kind of starting out or looking to establish a new tourism experience for sure. So we're just trying to kind of clear that clutter for them and provide whatever support we can through some of these platforms. We just hosted our third tourism industry networking event last Thursday. We had 60 operators attend, and I had all of the peak industry bodies that I mentioned on that previous slide, so ATEC, the SA Tourism and TIC-SA down to chat with operators and engage. And so, moments like that are really important to allow, that collaboration, idea sharing, and sort of, allow someone to kind of understand what support and tools and resources are available to them through all of these peak bodies that exist. We sort of definitely funnel a lot of that out. We also drive ATDW profile growth. You're probably going, what is ATDW? That is a tourism data warehouse, which is what I spoke to as listings on our destination website. So we're looking at supporting businesses to grow that, because it is the single most important tool to kind of allow business to be seen in the online world, and it's free, and it's super easy to kind of get happening. So it also means that our region is more visible for listings we can get up. And whether that be a business, a journey, a trail, anything like that. We've also, me personally, has also attended the Australian Tourism Exchange and pitched our region to international buyers to make sure we remain relevant as a destination on their kind of itinerary planning and things like that. And then we've also had a representation of the region at the Caravanning Camping Show earlier this year, which had over sort of 22,000 attendees, and we actually did that as a cross-border collaboration. So we went with West Wimmera Council, Great Ocean Road Tourism Alliance, and another whose name escapes me. But so activities like that. Thank you. I I've touched on some of these, but the ways that we engage and the ways you as elected members are welcome to engage with tourism should you feel so inclined. We have got a LinkedIn happening at Destination Limestone Coast, and that is a way that we stay front of mind with our state tourism organisation, with our national tourism organisation, and we are constantly sharing kind of stories and what we're up to within the region in that LinkedIn space, being sort of a raw corporate kind of form of social media now. The Tourism Industry Facebook group, like I mentioned, the Tourism Industry Updates e-newsletter that we have got as a new initiative, and I guess the LCLGA website is happening as sort of that corporate side to tourism in terms of someone who's looking for resources as an operator or a business owner. I've just introduced a tourism data snapshot, which is issued by Localis, who are a data platform, and that snapshot is providing monthly updates for operators so that they can understand how is my performance as a business doing with respect to the rest of the region, how is my performance compared to our neighbouring regions like Great Ocean Road or Grampians or so on, and it looks at sort of projected occupancy, projected visitors to the region to allow a business to kind of start to plan or understand the environment they're operating. If things are slow for them, is that happening to everyone else? Do I need to switch up my marketing plans? Are we looking at a softening in the next few months? What can I do to kind of incite a bit more activity within my business? Those sorts of things. So those snapshots are currently on the LCLJ website and sort of being pushed out across our various channels. We've also got tourism checklists available for someone who's just like, oh my goodness, where do I start? What is a priority for me? How do I, how do I navigate this? And then it's a place to access the strategy and many other things. That was very quick. Hopefully not too quick, but you're welcome to ask me any questions. Like I said, the strategy is pretty meaty. It's hard to kind of hone it in to a very succinct offering for you, but hopefully that gives you sort of a breadth of what I'm working on in the project and sort of value in terms of the region.
Thank you, Kate. Can you just can you inform us what tourism's worth to the Limestone Coast LGA region, roughly?
It was just on that regional visitor. No, that's all right.
No, big on one.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
So the actual, as of 2022, was 441 million.
Okay.
Where obviously we've got this bigger target of 479, which is part of a much bigger target at a state level. But yeah, that's essentially where we're sitting in terms of. But also, I think the other important thing is about the employment element too, and we have seen quite a lot of growth in that space too. So 2,700 jobs in the tourism space. So yeah, there's other ways to kind of measure, and I think that will continue to kind of change too in terms of that measurement. I think there's social, there's a number of different ways that you can measure tourism, indirect and direct. Yeah.
Thank you, Kate. Are there any other questions for Kate?
Just a question. I think I know the answer, but to put it in perspective, the Limestone Coast does have a much higher visitation than other more famous regions like the Barossa, Kangaroo Island, Adelaide Hills, Victor Harbour, doesn't it? And
We have yes and no. We have a different visitor profile, and one of our strength is our border with Victoria. We see international visitation coming off the Great Ocean Road, and while 7% of our total visitors may not seem a lot, it is significant compared to other regions. So other regions don't play in that space of international visitation, but they just don't attract them. But they are a high value visitor, so they're a higher spend. Yes.
my question wasn't about international, it was about overall. So the Limestone Coast punches above its weight, even though it doesn't sort of even though it doesn't really appear to be on any of the ads. You always see the Barossa Valley, the Kangaroo Island, or we're fourth, which is pretty significant.
Yeah, absolutely, in 11 regions.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks.
Yes, we do. Yeah, which is why it's hard to sum up in I guess in a marketing camp. It's very, there's lots of sort of touch points, I guess, with promotional activities and, lots of opportunities.
Very good. No further questions. Thank you very much, Kate. Oh, sorry, Councillor Goodman.
I wasn't sure whether I have a question for Colin.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. My question was just in regard to the development of the growth strategy. And it would seem to me that there's potentially actions or activity that overlaps with Regional Development Australia. And I was just wondering how that works and...
I should have said that, this is actually a partnership with RDA, right? So there is that link in it. So it's joint funding as well, so partnership and actions as well as dollars. So they've been involved the whole way. We just tend to be the lead on this at the moment and pushing it forward. They've got people on the working party, people on the evaluation panel, plus they've had input into the tender brief significantly as well. So their projects will come out of that as well as what we do. There's also another part of it that's the regional planning that's just happening, so that'll flow into that as well. So there's multiple outcomes that'll come out from the growth strategy, which will have great benefit to the region. So thank you for letting us come and do this tonight. We're keen to do a bit of a roadshow around most councils because we interact a lot with the mayors and the CEOs, but we don't interact a lot with elected members. So that was our opportunity with the invite from the mayor to come and do so. So thanks for listening to us. Any questions? Kate.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Kate. I'd like someone to move that the minutes of the meeting of October 24th, 2023. Mr. Councillor Dennis, Councillor Ross, all those in favour? Thank you. Recommendation of the special council meeting held on the 31st of October are taken as read as confirmed. Someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Ross, Councillor Dennis. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. I don't believe there's any matters on the table. I present my report. I move my report be accepted. Seconder, please. Councillor Turner. All those in favour? Are there any questions? Carried. Thank you. Elected members report from Councillor Goodman. Thank you, Councillor Goodman. Would you like to highlight anything from that, Councillor Goodman?
I would like to speak, if that's okay. In addition to my written report, I just wanted to acknowledge the amazing response and coming together of the community following the phenomenal weather event on Friday that was experienced here in Naracoorte. I think the event was something that exceeded expectations and previous experiences of people here, which made it hard to prepare for and anticipate. And although I wasn't in Naracoorte when the storm hit, I got a good sense of the scale and speed of the flooding through news and social media. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of those who were involved in the immediate response, those who helped with the clean-up following, and also acknowledge those who are still impacted. And I'd like to thank the council staff who responded both on Friday out of hours and then into Saturday as well with the assisting the community with responding and cleaning up, and also the emergency services, including CFS, who spent a lot of time. It's never easier and convenient when these events occur. I drove through Naracoorte on Saturday morning and I was impressed with how quickly the water had drained away. I've heard that this downpour was likely more than a 1 in 100 year event, and with that in mind I think our infrastructure performed pretty well. I think it's unfortunate and unfair that there's been some negative social commentary on social media around this, and I commend Ben for coming in and speaking to council and administration about how we might go about addressing those issues into the future, but also recognising that this was a pretty rare and extreme event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. Councillor Crosling, have you got anything to add to your...
I wanted to add and highlight a couple of things. Off the back of Councillor Goodman's comments, I just wanted to also thank Daniel and all the works depot staff for their hard work over the past few days with the clean-up. Like you said, nothing can prepare you for 5 inches of rain in 24 hours, and I think they've worked overtime helping the community clean up. I also just wanted to highlight, I went to an event on Saturday organised by the Naracoorte Rotary Club with their president-elect. Is that your name, Liz? Are you president-elect? President. Liz is the president of the Naracoorte Rotary Club. They organised their inaugural walk against domestic violence on Saturday. And Saturday was the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. Sadly, last week alone, 4 women in South Australia lost their lives to alleged domestic violence. That's just in 1 week. And as of this morning, we had 68 women that had been killed this year by acts of violence. This is not a women's issue. and everyone needs to take action to prevent and end violence against women and girls. And I thank the Naracoorte Rotary Club for organising that work, and it's going to be an annual event and get bigger and bigger every year. Just a couple of things that I put in my report. If you haven't read, we obviously have a few events coming up. Busy time of year. We have the Naracoorte Christmas pageant, which is on this Friday night to be held at the Naracoorte Showgrounds. Pageant starts at 6. Be great to see lots of people there to support that community event, which is run by the Naracoorte Business Association. We also had some very exciting news for our community that the Taste the Limestone Coast Festival, which has been running since 2002, received $20,000 grant through SATAC for the 2024 event, which I'm the event organiser of, run with the Naracoorte Lions Club. So that is a very important event that has been running, like I said, since 2002, and it aligns with the weekend of the golf and the Naracoorte Cup on the Sunday. So it will be a big event that brings a lot of people, hopefully, to the area that weekend. And lastly, as I've mentioned in my report, the Naracoorte Art Gallery is holding an art op shop, which opens officially tomorrow night, so anyone can come along from 6 o'clock to the opening. There is 230 works of art which people have put up for sale, so you can go in there, you can buy any piece of art. It's open, it's running until the 17th of December, so a great opportunity to go and buy some art and have a bit of a look, maybe for some Christmas presents for those people that are hard to buy for. But that is the major fundraiser for the Naracoorte Art Gallery, and they have done a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crosling. Councillor Ireland.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. No.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. I appreciate that. Item 9, Mr. Smart.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First report, I've got a number of reports, but just a general CEO report, only on local government elections review. So as normally follows local government elections, the state government seeks a review of how they run, seeking suggestions on changing legislation, and as I've detailed in the report, perhaps suggestions to LGA and the Electoral Commission of SA on actually how they run elections operationally. We've got till March to provide a submission, either to the state government and LGA. Since writing the report, LGA have come out with some more details, so they're seeking our feedback by early February, but it still allows us plenty of time. I've put a number of suggestions in there for your initial consideration and trying to, I guess, provoke a bit of thought. But given that you've all just been through an election, you would have had your own good and bad experiences as to the process, whether it be the nomination process, the count, the communications from EXA, etc. They can all be brought up in this review. So I guess for a start, they're my thoughts. I'll be happy to take thoughts from all of the members, preferably by email or something that we can then put a report together, I'd suggest in January or February for you to consider, endorse, change, etc. And then provide that to the state government LGA. So happy to take any questions on that. Other than that, a list of other meetings and activities undertaken, including a bit of a summary of the country cabinet and the meetings that were involved in with that. So happy to take questions.
Councillor Downwood.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Mr Smart, I just noticed that amongst the cabinet ministers who were down here that you mentioned that Nick Champion was one of the ministers you spoke to, and I was just wondering whether you could elaborate on what his thoughts were on development for Naracoorte, or what our chances might be of grant funding, considering that Watertown Macambia was successful in the last rounds, and they've just announced there's been a fairly significant amount that's been put out there. So, and if there were any areas that he might have been looking at and thinking or suggesting that we might consider development. But thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Downwood. And we've had some ongoing discussions with Renewal SA and the Office for Regional Housing, who both report through to the Minister, so they're aware of the Civitas report, which I'll provide an update on that at December meeting. Generally, the Minister wanted to sit down and have a discussion about what our opportunities may or may not be. We're still probably limited to some degree that we don't have residential land for development. So Tatiara, their win was really on development on land they own, and they've just purchased a fairly sizable allotment of land to develop for residential. Mount Gambier announced it's more on social housing. So as our own region, we don't really need social housing. We need affordable housing and just general housing stock. So we did discuss, so both Mayor and myself have reported in the past that there was an allocation of $500,000 for Naracoorte Listdale to utilise. We've been trying to find out how we could utilise that. So it's not as simple as hand over funding and we get some housing built, because, you know, for $500,000 you don't get a lot. So we discussed the GJ Gardner development, which is, again, a private development that's been approved. Ball Brothers Earth Moving development, which they'd sought approval, but now being, I guess, hamstrung by native vegetation issues. So we made the Minister aware of that. North Parklands, we made him aware of what Council's position was on that. And Jan Street, we had some discussions on our past approach on seeking to have community land classification revoked, which was refused by the Minister. And he did make some suggestions that if we made another approach, they would have good discussions with the Minister, who would sign off on that. So our approach to housing needs to be a partnership with the private sector, unless council purchases residential land for development. And in the past, council have been somewhat risk averse to being a developer, which I'll probably support that approach. So we're still looking to put up suggestions on how we can access that funding. But yeah, it's really about a private partnership that may come through council without us actually being a contributor.
Any further questions? Mr. Smart? Would someone like to move that CEO report be received? Councillor Downward, Councillor Turner, all those in favour? Carried, thank you. Key projects, Mr. Smart, Mr. Willsmore?
Nothing further to add.
Nothing further to add.
Mayor Ross.
Councillor Grundy.
I had a question, thank you, Mayor Ross. I refer to the report and in particular page 14 and page 13. So those photos, the before and after shots all look very good, of course. But I note there on page 13 that the shoulders that were associated with the seal that was taking place looked very compromised. And I guess my question is, would they be due for some rehabilitation in the same round of fixing up?
Yes, thank you. So some of the works that were carried out was edge breaks and edge repair. So now we've got a service to work to. Shoulder grading will be undertaken as part of our round. So some of those photos there were Lane Coop Road, so that will get some shoulder grading when we move into the winter season.
I note another question over here. No? I note that the work done on James Road is spectacular. Thank you. Finance report. Do you have anything to add, Ms Edmonds?
No, nothing further to add to the report. Happy to take questions.
Are there any questions of Ms Edmonds? Oops, it's disappeared somewhere. There it goes. No. Yeah. What's next? Finance. Budget review. Ms Edmonds.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Nothing further to add, just to revisit quickly for new members. This is the first of our budget reviews of the 3 major reviews. You can see the summary of operational and capital expenditure, including the carryovers that we addressed in July. So happy to take any questions.
Silence. No questions. Would someone like to move that the budget review for the year ending 30 June 24 as at 30th of October 23 be endorsed? Councillor Ross, Councillor Goodman, all those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Certification of Ms. Edmonds.
Thanks again. So we have now received back our stamped or final ticked copy of our financial statements. At the time of preparing the report, they are in their final draft format. So with the auditors doing a couple more expectations or tick and flicks for them, we now have the final copy back. Happy to take any questions as far as the financial statements goes. We have also had our audit committee review them as you're aware.
Any questions around the final statements for last year? Being none, I ask if someone would move that the draft financial statements pertaining to the operations up until 30 June 23. Councillor Ross, Councillor Dennis, all those in favour? Carried, thank you. And I'm also looking for someone to move that the Chief Executive Officer is authorised to sign the Council's certification of auditor independence acknowledging the following statement, which you can all read. Would someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Downwood, Councillor Turner, all those in favour? Thank you. Item 11.4, long-term financial plan. Ms. Corbyn's not here to discuss that. Ms. Edmonds, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you. So we're presenting our long-term financial plan and combined asset management plan for endorsement. As you know, we've had several workshops and the odd special meeting about it. Happy to take any questions. There's a lot of information in there. I understand that possibly there are questions. They might have to be taken on notice though, rather than at this point in time. So happy to.
Thank you. Councillor Ireland.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Ms. Edmonds, I'm just a bit concerned. Some of the figures shocked me, and I realise this is a long-term financial plan, but the future impact of decisions made today have on the future sustainability of the council is a question put there, because it was nearly $10 million in the 24-25 budget for just out here, and it just shocked me that I think ratepayers would probably not. If ratepayers were looking over this, it would be a huge shock to them to know that that's just about our rate revenue for a 12-month period. And I just wonder when we get to whether we should be revisiting that at a very early stage, that's all.
Mr. Smart.
Yeah, fair question. As a long-term financial plan should indicate whether we're potentially spending beyond our means or managing it appropriately. So I think what it does show you is that there are some shortfalls both in cash and particularly some aspirational spending, which probably most of it would come from probably a lot of the master plans that we endorse. So we've split the asset management plans into I guess two sections of looking after our current assets, which should be our priority, and then separating other sections into what new assets or new services, etc. would be. So within Ms. Edmonds' report is suggestions that we do have to do some more work, and I think particularly from the master plans, council I think needs to identify the various projects across those that have been endorsed by council, so they don't go into the plan until they've been endorsed by council. That's go through that community engagement process to do so. But to look, excuse me, to look at how those are funded. So whether the community and the Leckle Park's a good example where the community are doing in-kind works to achieve some of that value. So I think over the next, if this is endorsed over the next 12 months prior to the next August, September review, is that council start working through, particularly some of the master plans on how they could be funded, or some of the assumptions that council would make that we can only do project A or B if we achieve at least 50% funding, those sort of things. So a few more positions made by council on that. So, but the long-term financial plan is currently telling you what it should do. Is it viable? Is it not? If it doesn't look as though it's viable, what do we need to do about it? Then we take some planning actions to deal with that. So, there's no easy answers in that. That's quite a bit of work to do, and what it also may mean is we have to go back to community and say, well, we can do these projects, or community can do some of the projects, but it has to be done and recognise that how it's going to be done and how it can be funded. So it doesn't always have to be council that is the funder of it. That answer your question in part?
In part.
Yep.
I am just concerned about, if I may, Ross, I am just concerned about $5.66 million roundabout out here. That it's the first time I laid my eyes on it, to be honest, because I haven't looked through enough plans.
In the Redrive plan? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you have a question, Councillor Grundy?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Ross. I just wanted to refer to the CEO's comments in 11.4 that dealt with the Sale Yards board. Essentially, I've been on the board for probably 5 or 6 years. At all stages, I think that we've set out to appease the agents, satisfy the agents, and spend within our means and keep up with industry standards. In fact, I can't remember one occasion where we have not endorsed the administration's advice. Only recently we had an AMP long-term financial plan where we discussed the income from the sheep, part of the revenue from the sheep, and we decided that it would be financially prudent to delay the sheep shed. On another occasion, the administration gave us 3 models, which were 3 increases of yard fees, and in a financially responsible way, the board has got behind the highest of those increases. So I was very surprised and somewhat blindsided to read that, to tell you the truth. And I think in defence of the board, I'd like Mr Smart, given that this has been tabled in a council-endorsed document, which is a public document, I'd like Mr Smart to flesh out those areas where the board has been lacking, and in particular be quite specific with how the business case for the Sale Yards has been compromised by the board.
Councillor Grundy.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. And from discussions that we had last week on the subject, and I've had a similar discussion with the Mayor about my concerns, and one of my roles as CEO is to raise with Council, particularly the Audit and Risk Committee, who have oversight of the NRLE finances, is any concerns I have from a risk perspective. So, as you would be aware, the draft AMP long-term financial plan for the NRLE shows a significant shortfall in funds, which then can impact on Council's ability to fund our own programs. So what I'm doing through the Audit and Risk Committee is raising that risk. So I acknowledge, yes, the board has followed administration's recommendations, and they are recommendations. What I had raised with you earlier was my concern about the level of strategic discussion at board level, where there is some involvement. In some other instances, there is a total lack of involvement in a forward strategy. So that's why I've raised a risk. If I didn't do so with our Audit and Risk Committee, I wouldn't be doing my job.
Thank you, Mr Smart. Did I see that? Mr Turner. Mr Grundy.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. I don't, thank you for the response, Mr Smart. I don't really think that goes to the veracity of your comments in the agenda. So.
I've identified where I believe there's a risk to Council, because the NRLE is over the term of the AMP is going to be lending more funds from council. So that is a risk that has to be identified. I'm not saying the risk is not manageable. The risk has been identified as one that we have to have close overview of. So it doesn't mean that we won't get to the right place at the right time. And from comments that the board is following whatever we recommend, that's good, but it's also the board's responsibility to have good discussion, debate at a strategic level rather than operational level, which is where most of it, in my opinion, occurs with some. So that's the board's terms of reference, that it operates on a strategic basis rather than operational. So the board's role is not to appease agents, it's to run a good business, which may keep the agents happy or it may not on any given time.
Mr Turner, do you have a question?
Just to Alex, if you don't mind, Ms Evans. I'm just getting my head around what was the statement of comprehensive income, which is, I guess, is a 10 or 11 year forecast of income and expenses. So to put it in perspective, over the 10 years, we're going to raise something like $250 million. But it seems that I guess it's a wish list as a budget, but each year we're budgeting for a surplus, and over the 10 years we're budgeting for a surplus of 26.3 million, which is very prudent. If I've added up that line there, I know it's not set in stone, but when we had the LGA finance people there, we asked the question, what would you think would be prudent in terms of budgeting surplus deficit, and the answer was plus or minus 5%. And I'm just wondering whether if we're budgeting near 10%, on average every year for the next 10 years as a surplus, congratulations if we achieve that. I think you do a great job and it's very prudent, but I'm just wondering whether that might be a little bit high. And am I correct? I've added those figures up over the course of the 10 years that we, for example, budgeting for surplus 1.5, 2.2, 2.3, 2.6, 2.8, 3 million as it goes up with inflation and so on. Are we comfortable that we're not over budgeting for surplus? That's all. I've got that.
I guess what I can offer today is our approach as far as all things income are relatively conservative. We only use very minute, very conservative estimates as far as CPI or increase goes. As far as our expenses, we probably tend to overcompensate or be on the higher end of the scale as far as percentages goes. All of our information is fed from our systems that look at our assets and our historical operating expenditure. So we base all costs and all income based on historicals. Grants, as far as our operating grants, are always relatively conservative in its approach. So I guess at the end of the day, if it's generating this sort of information, I don't feel that our inputs are unrealistic to deliver that sort of result. Also with our rate income, we don't overestimate in that department either. So other than delving further, I could look into specifics for you. I can take part of your comment or query on notice and do a bit of further delving if you like. But yeah, so hopefully that sort of answers how we get about that result.
My quick, look at stuff, just a quick back of the envelope. I looked at the total income over 10 years. I looked at the surplus and I looked, okay, what's the balance sheet? And the balance sheet improves over the 10 years. So all of the data's in there, so it shows that it's very prudent and manageable. We'll take it off at a next risk and audit and risk meeting. But I'm just wondering whether, we're constantly achieving surpluses, and which is good. But I just wonder, including this year we got 1.4, but I was just wondering whether we might be overachieving.
I would suggest to the elected members that as we work through this upcoming budget session to next year, that we make some decisions around what we consider to be a prudent amount if we're running a surplus budget. And that's something that we can, certainly look at sharpening up most probably. Any further discussion? Councillor Goodman.
I'm not going to be able to lean on this much longer as being a first-term councillor going through this for the first time, but I guess I was also, we've officially been in our jobs for a year. I was taken aback by the bottom lines in this long-term financial plan, I think it has done its job in terms of indicating what we can and can't afford, and there's a lot in there that we can't afford. I understand that this has been generated by the master plans that have been consulted on and endorsed by council, but it is evident that this is not a plan that we can deliver without making some big decisions. So I would like to move a motion with an amendment if that is acceptable.
This motion has not been moved.
So I'd like to amend the motion then, please, Mr Mayor.
Move a motion.
I'll move a motion. Oh, there we go. Okay. Right, thank you.
To move a motion.
I'd like to move the motion that council endorses the long-term financial plan and infrastructure and asset management plan for the period 2024 to 2034, and that we held a workshop in February to undertake a review of the inclusions in that long-term financial plan. Happy to have some advice on the wording around that, but to look at what is included so that
And the workshop in 2024 to...
February 2024, to, I said, review, to undertake a review of the things that are included in our long-term financial plan.
To undertake a review of the plan.
Happy with that?
I'll second that.
Councillor Grundy seconds. Would you like to speak to that?
No.
Councillor Ross.
The long-term financial plan is really just it's a framework that we use with discussions like we're having in the chamber now. So we will undertake as a council, when we do our budget planning, that exact review. So I don't know whether, I don't think it's worth, I don't think it's relevant to have that in there because we're going to be holding it anyhow. We're going to be doing it anyhow. So the framework, this is just like it's like a budget or a cash flow. It's not an exact science. We've tried to put some, as council, tried to put some things in there so we can have some foresight where things are going in what direction. We're not saying that's what we have to do. This is what the consequences of what we've got, which we've fed in there. So every year when we have a budget review, which we're going to be doing, when everyone puts up what they want to do, those things will be fed in back into it, and then the results will then, and that long-term financial plan will then adjust. So I think we don't necessarily need to have that in there because we're going to be doing it anyhow. It's all going to be part of the function of what we're doing. So that's what my thoughts are.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, and thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor
I'd like just to see support what Councillor Ross is saying, and it's also to have that information in there, considering that's a 10-year period, that's 3 councils. So to keep that information, there's another 2 councils besides this one that will be basing decisions on that. So to keep that information in there, and as Councillor Ross has said, it's a flexible document. It's not saying we're spending that money, it's just the ideas of the community and we have put in there.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. No, Councillor Grundy, you've seconded the motion. Didn't wish to speak. Councillor Dennis.
We do, if the outcome of this motion is in the negative, does that mean we can't move a second motion to endorse the financial plan moving forward? Now, if it's found to be against in the negative, does that mean that we don't endorse the financial plan?
So,
Does that make sense?
in fact, that would be the case, and it wouldn't be the end of the world, Councillor Dennis, but there would be a moment where the council doesn't have a long-term financial plan endorsed.
We have an outdated long-term financial plan
Yes.
endorsed still. You still revert to the old one.
Yeah, that's an outdated one. Okay, very good.
Yeah. Sorry, just in conclusion, I'm happy to sit through a workshop if it means we endorse the financial plan.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Turner.
I think the intention was to endorse it, so you've got a document to endorse, but to have a specific workshop. Sometimes we brush over things. Like we at a SAP meeting, we ended up signing off on a number of things, including the town rejuvenation. I think one of the highlights that came out of this on page 333 of the 845-page agenda, under the Narra Court rejuvenation, in the budget for 2024-25, we've got Ormerod Street roundabout to Degaris 5.6 million. Raised accessible car park 22,000. Jones Street 566,000, which I'm assuming is just to raise the road for $500,000. Riverside Drive, 3.9 million, and in the year after that, 25-26, we've got Ormerod Street, 3 million, and formalised long-term parking, 843,000. So it actually adds up to 13.5 million in 2 years in terms of the town rejuvenation. So that's just something that when you pull out, you say, okay, I know we've endorsed it, and I know we get a chance to review these things, but I think that was one of the triggers that leads to, can we just have a workshop where we specifically focus on those things and not try and do too much. We specifically focus on just the financial plan, and that gives everyone a bit more time to look into it, ask questions beforehand, and we can all get on the same page, because I think the long-term document is great. I was saying to my CEO today, I wish we had the same level of budgeting and that this council does. I commend you. It's terrific to get the 10-year plan and a document like that, and a believable document that drills down at a micro level too, by the way. It's all built from, the toilets that we clean and the playgrounds we replace and assets we look after. So I think that's all fine. I just think Councillor Goodman was looking for a review in time so that we can have a specific focus on it to make sure we're all signing up again for what we signed up for. Nothing to do with the overall plan, just specific, and I think that's what highlighted it.
Thank you, Councillor Turner, and I think Councillor Goodman is looking for just a little certainty around the financial plan.
Can I speak to it before
No,
we
you've moved
vote
it,
on it?
and you should have spoken to it at the
I
time.
thought you'd get in
Right, you're right to reply, of course.
Thank you for that, and I do understand and acknowledge that it is a living document and that these things can change at any point in time. I do not see the value, though, in endorsing something that we don't have the capacity to deliver, and I think that in reviewing it doesn't necessarily mean that wish list items disappear completely, but it's identified what is discretionary spending more strongly, and they can be added in at any other point in time as we go through budget processes year to year, but I would feel very uncomfortable about having a long-term plan that we don't look at more closely that takes us into the negative track.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? Motion's carried, thank you. 4.1. Someone like to move that the minutes of the Strat Plan meeting of the 12th of September be accepted? Councillor Dennis, Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? Carried. Someone like to move that the clearance activities adjacent. That the clearance activities adjacent Yakka Park, Lucedale entrance are undertaken and a budget adjustment is undertaken at the Council's second budget review. I'd like to inform the Council that that work has happened. So we'd be looking for some endorsement around that. So thank you, Councillor Turner, Councillor Downwood. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. At the revised, would someone like to move that the revised Miles Road design of a single lane seal road be accepted, is accepted? Councillor Grundy, Councillor Ireland. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. 12.2. That the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee of the 8th of August 23 taken as read and accepted. Someone like to move to that effect? Councillor Maguire, Councillor Ross. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. The Council notes that the Audit and Risk Committee has reviewed the draft financial statements and believe they are a true and fair representation of the position, the financial position end of June 23. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Turner, Ross. All those in favour? Thank you. Council receives and notes reports relating to the performance of the Naracoorte Regional Livestock Exchange as of 4 October 23. Councillor Grundy, Councillor Ross. All those in favour? Thank you. Reports for decision, 13.1. Mr. Smart.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As the report is written, with the not so recent local government reforms, it was legislated that council had to consider the adoption of employee behavioural standards. This council already has internal HR adopted behavioural standards. So what the legislation is asking councils to consider, it doesn't mean you have to adopt one. If we do choose to adopt it, we then have to consult with unions and other bodies on what that may mean for our organisation. And I would suggest that those organisations don't have the best interests of our organisation at heart at most times. So apart from the whole report, what I'm suggesting is that council considers the issue but moves to not actually have a council endorsed behavioural standards policy, but that be just included in the normal people organisational management, which is delegated to the CEO. But happy to take questions or comments.
I'd like to move the motion as written. Councillor Dennis move. Councillor Downward second. Any further discussion? There being none, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. 13.2.
The continuation of our delegations review. Last month you got the bulk of all the delegations. This is as refers purely to the Planning, Development and Infrastructure Act. So it's set out for your consideration and questions, but recommending endorsement. Further to that, as you'll see in Mr McCrosty's report, we'll then have to deal a little bit later on with the regional assessment panel, where Mr McCrosty is the only accredited level 1 planning, what's the terminology? Level 1 planning officer with the 3 council, Kingston, Tatiara and us. So we're at an advantage there, but it may increase his workload. So that will come at a later meeting, but this is purely the delegations under that PDI Act. So happy to take questions.
Any questions? I seek someone to move to that effect. Councillor Ross, Councillor Turner. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. 13.3. Advocacy plan. Mrs Collins, would you like to make any comment around your advocacy plan?
Thank you, Mayor Ross. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. This was a priority action for this current financial year in our new strategic plan. So obviously there's a base document, and then I've provided a couple of examples of priority projects which can change from time to time, they're ever evolving. So advocacy is, any action that speaks in favour of a cause. Examples I've provided are those that perhaps speak in favour of funding proposals or collaborating with state and federal governments to fund a significant project. But advocacy can also be providing more general support to causes, for instance, support for our multicultural community members, those sorts of things. So ever evolving, happy to handle any questions. Or CEO might also have some comments as well.
Councillor Goodman.
I don't have a question, but I was going to move and speak to the motion, but if there's a question first, happy to have a question.
Councillor Ireland.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. I was just going to ask, the plan seems to be based on funding the advocacy role that the council's got, searching for funds for things. But, is there other areas that we should be working on rather than just looking for grants? As far as our schooling, our medical and other parts of the economy, parts of the township, I'm sorry. Even business for that matter.
As I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, Councillor Ireland, they were just examples that I provided because a lot of the advocacy we do is aimed at grant funding submissions when we have visits from state or federal ministers, so we can easily present that to them. But yes, it covers that as well. It's a huge area, a broad area. It's basically just highlighting our commitment to advocating across a range of levels for our community. In a nutshell, that's what it is.
Can I just add, if I may, Councillor Ireland, that advocacy is a really important role that I have and the elected members have, not only with our community, but within, the broader state and federal government spheres. And, it's really important for us, given these examples, to have a framework for advocacy. So if something is highlighted for us that we would like to advocate for, we can get our administration to develop an advocating framework that we can then go away and use that as a template for advocating for that section of the community or for a certain subject matter that we're looking to advocate for. So that's what that is around. Mr. Smart.
Yep, I'll just add to those comments, and your questions are fair. So the end game for the advocacy, so the advocacy policy just outlines the why and the way we do it. So those two examples, there'd be a number of those developed, and including nearly every area that would be covered off in our strategic plan, which includes your health, education, those sort of things. So that's where, if you remember back to our strategic plan, our various roles within it. Some are funders, some are doers, some is advocating. So the various health services, education, and that's why we try to have a partnership with NAHAC. So when we do those, 2 or 3 pages, that we're informed by health sector or education sector who they are. So when we go to a minister or whoever it might be, it's actually backed up by what those agencies need and where the shortfalls are. So the intention is to have a number of those sheets, whether it be, it's not just council services, it's all other services that benefit the community, and that is outlined in the overall plan. So generally, the Mayor and CEO are quite often first points of call, so we quite often discuss the various areas, but this also provides, so within our website, so an elected member, if you're going somewhere, you can have 3 or 4 of those that you can just hand to a minister or whoever they may be. So it's a fairly clear, concise example of what the community or council needs. So it's there to hopefully, we're all sending the same message, but you take the opportunity as they arise to make sure others are informed of what our community and council needs.
Councillor Goodman.
I'd like to move the motion and speak to it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Goodman. Councillor Dennis. Any further discussion? Councillor Goodman.
Thank you. Advocacy is something that I am quite passionate about, and I was really pleased that it came up in our strategic plan discussion earlier in the year. I have been doing quite a bit of thinking and talking about this piece today because I misinterpreted its direction initially, and I misinterpreted the priority project examples as the priorities. So I feel a lot more comfortable now that the recognition is that these are frameworks within which we can advocate for all of those broader things which aren't necessarily council's core business, but we get seats at tables and access to networks and individuals that other community members don't, and we are in a unique position of representing our ratepayer base. So now that I have that context and understanding, I'm very happy to support this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 13.4. Mr. Smart.
Excuse me. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So my report on the parking and property purchases. Part 1 is fairly repetitive, what I reported back in the October meeting, so I won't go through that in detail. More of an update on Part 2, Norman's Carpet site. As per Council's motion, we provided an offer that was not accepted. We provided a slightly higher offer, which was also not accepted, with the message that they would then just put the property would be on the market for $750,000. So I left it at that. So part 3 is really, I guess, the report summary and a number of comments, observations, questions in that. So as the contract for sale for 99 Smith Street, council needs to make a decision, a formal resolution to purchase or not by the 30th of November. So my suggestions for what council should consider, so community engagement, part of it, council decided that we want to do what we wanted to seek the community's opinion on the proposed purchase and conversion of that site to car parking spaces. We've got a pretty good, what I would term a fairly good response from 196 people. Probably as elected members of administration, it would always be good to have a lot more, but probably close to 200 people is a pretty good response. That indicated 67% were not supporting the proposal. Responses on the question of do you believe there's a shortage of public parking, essentially 50-50, which doesn't help elected members make decisions when the community's not giving you clear direction on their thoughts. So I guess, questions from me, there's a clear indication that there is no clear indication that there's a shortage of parking or not from those that responded. I guess questions, is the issue that people can't find a park where they want to find a park when they want to rather than a shortage of parking? Probably a positive, a busy street is generally a healthy street as opposed to plenty of empty parking spaces. When the town centre rejuve plan was done, the consultant that undertook that, I think had done the Berry town centre, and I think his comments were that council and people actually parked their cars in the street to make it look busy because it was just generally empty. So that's a positive for us that it is empty. Doesn't mean we haven't got an issue. Or are there lack of spaces readily available at certain peak times, which would be probably most places. Again, why some may not consider 196 responses a good turnout, I think that's a reasonable response rate. If the 196 responses are not considered enough for council to take into account, what do you deem sufficient? In the cost, in my opinion, the cost of purchase the site is high, particularly given that the site would be demolished for car park development. The existing purchase value would be reduced to a new, and that's my estimate, $402,000 based on the value of general site value plus 20%. That value decrease doesn't really have a significant effect on council's finance. Indicates that the return on investment is community value of the parking, not any appreciated value of the site. Is a total estimated spend of 1.6 mil a good use of council funds for additional car parking? The does guarantee an extra 24 car park spaces with the existing 7 spaces. Question, we don't know if someone else buys it, will those 17 spaces remain or not? That's a question we can't answer because we don't know the answer. Currently they are there. Should council still consider other available options such as the old library building at an estimated cost of $445 for an additional 21 car parking spaces? So with all that, there is no right or wrong answer for council to make. It becomes a strategic decision of council to make. So my suggestions, if council decides not to purchase, do council wish to further consider other sites, including Norman Carpets at an affordable price, Smith Street properties, the old library, or a re-offer for the ANZ site, potentially at a lower value? Does council wish to adopt a position that it considers that there is not a parking shortage, but there still may be a parking issue? If council decides to purchase, how does council wish to fund the purchase and the development costs? As this is a new asset, I'd suggest borrowing for at least the site purchase and considering whether we borrow or not for development costs. And also dealing with community land. If council decides to purchase, I would suggest that we exclude that land from community land. What that allows us to do, if we at some point in time, a council in the future decides to do something different with the land, it doesn't then have to seek ministerial consent to do anything with the land. It's, if we buy it, it's our land, we should make the decisions about the land we own rather than involving a minister in the decision, my opinion. So, given all the above, I'm recommending that council do not proceed with the purchase based on community engagement outcomes and the overall cost of purchase and development of the site. But I acknowledge and understand that this remains a council decision, and my opinion is is reflected in my recommendation. Happy to take questions, comments, or otherwise.
Thank you, Mr Smart. Councillor Dennis.
I would like to move the motion as written and seek a seconder. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. I asked for, okay. You're asking, I've read the procedures, Councillor Dennis, and generally but I'll allow you leave of the meeting to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. I'd first of all like to commend the strategic thinking that's gone into the idea. We do, as councillors, have to speak to work strategically, and I think nothing's off the table as far as an idea that can be brought before council. However, I don't perceive there is a parking issue in the CBD that warrants the spend that is involved in the project. I think that this fit-for-purpose building can be utilised by private enterprise, and the utilisation of our funds that we would put towards, and by the advice of the CEO, borrow, can be utilised in other projects. We have heard tonight in our long-term financial plan that we do have many, many projects on the table. Historically, this project isn't in our CBD rejuve plan, and I don't think that the bang for the buck as far as parking goes warrants the outlay. I think that money can be further utilised elsewhere in a project, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor.
Motion as well?
Yes.
I'm in agreement that I agree not to purchase the ANZ site, and my reasons clearly speak for themselves. We asked the community for their thoughts, and 67% are not in favour of the purchase, and 51% of those who took the time to vote do not believe we have a parking shortage. We go out to the community for consultation to get their opinion and on the community that each of us represent. We're here to listen to that consultation and make the best decisions in the best interests of the community. And if we do not listen to the community on this, then I feel that this feeds straight into the old narrative that council never listens and does what it wants anyway. I don't always agree with the sentiments of former Mayor Ken Grundy, but in the letter that each elected member received, he points out that the ANZ building is attractive for further use in its current condition and encourages us choosing the Normans car park site as a better option. I think we can all agree that if a business was to come into town to buy the ANZ site, it would be a huge boost to the economy and a better outcome than a car park. As stated in our SAP meeting, buying the ANZ and knocking it down for car parking does not help with the lack of long vehicle car parking. We need to look at other options to help tourists stop and spend in our town. Long vehicle parking was mentioned 10 times in the survey responses, and purchasing the ANZ does not help alleviate the issue that we have with very limited and accessible long vehicle car parking. Long vehicle parking is so desperately needed in our town, and it sits in our delivery plan in the town rejuvenation plan at point 1.4, above increased parking, which sits at point 1.9. This is an endorsed direction of council. Council has other options in this space, and we have options that are easily more financially sensible, and that would still help the perceived parking problem. If we don't listen to our community feedback on this, then I see no point in doing any form of community consultation in the future. The community will feel ignored and not heard. We're here to represent the community, and whether individuals like it or not, the community do not want council to spend their ratepayer dollar on the ANZ site. We have other options, and options that aren't so costly to the community.
Thank you, Councillor Crosling. Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mayor Ross. I'll speak against. I'd like to just foreshadow the motion. I would have liked to have put the council actually authorises the CEO to execute our right to purchase the ANZ for the contracted price of 1.2 million, with the intent to create up to 41 public car parking spaces. So I'm not moving that, I'm foreshadowing it in case this motion is lost. And I'd just like to speak to why I thought the ANZ proposal was a good idea and why I still believe it does stack up. First of all, the ANZ building is for sale and represents a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to become a central car park for the town centre of Narracor. If we don't act now, the opportunity will be lost for future generation. Purchasing the building is strategic to council's long-term future. It secures the land, giving council ownership and control of the centre of town from the library through to the parks, across to the library, the town hall, through the parks and across here to the chamber. It secures all of that land for future growth. It sends a strong and positive message to stakeholders and future investors that the Narrabwood is serious about planning for growth and becoming a central hub for the Limestone Coast region. State government has indicated that they indicated recently that they too see the potential of Narrabwood, but would look elsewhere if they can see that the town council is not serious about growth. Recently, several $1 million was awarded to Tadeo Council that demonstrated that they demonstrated they were serious about housing shortage by purchasing land and seeking government assistance to help finance the basic infrastructure cost. I guess it shows that state government or federal government funding will go where they think it's going to be best used. Council has a conditional offer to purchase the site for $1.2 million and has determined the site can provide up to 41 public car parking spaces. It's not 24 plus 7 or plus 17, it's 41 new public car parking spaces. Total cost is estimated at 1.6 to purchase, demolish and create the 41 new car parks. So, as part of the feedback, is it value for money or is it too expensive? Norman's Carpets was suggested a number of times during that survey response as better value by a number of respondents. And the survey came back, number of respondents to the survey, and we came back with a price to purchase and develop 31 car parks. So in the CEO's report, he's reported that the price to purchase, that the market price is $1.3 million to purchase and develop 35 car parks. So that's sort of in line with the 1.6 with the ANZ to create 41 car parks. As a direct comparison, if you want a direct comparison that's close to less than 100 metres across the road from the ANZ, is a building on the market at the moment at 146 Smith Street. It's currently Nick McBride at leased it, and I admit it has a lease. It has a higher value because of that lease. The sale price of that has been reduced twice. It's now back to $860,000 for 365 square metres of land and building. That equates to $2,356 per square metre. The ANZ has a contracted price of $1.2 million at 1,240 square metres of land, and that equates to $967 per square metre, effectively making it 2.5 times cheaper than a building that is 100 metres across the road. So either that building across the road is too expensive or the ANZ is a bargain, in my opinion, at that price. The ANZ development is a replacement option for the original town rejuvenation plan that we were going to make Ormeau Street one way to create 20 parks, and I think it represents a better option than that. And I'm glad to see that proposal has been taken off the table. Now, certainly Smith Street, this is the other question that we're rattling around the room. Is there a parking problem, perceived or real? Certainly Smith Street has many car parks, had many car parks removed over the various stages of changing the street, and it struggles as a result, and that's demonstrated by the empty shops along Smith Street. Ormeau Street, on the other hand, seems to be a vibrant street because it has much more parking options. Now, to me, it's not really a problem, it's not really an issue of whether we have a parking problem today. It's about ensuring there isn't a parking problem in the future, and I think that's a really important point. The survey respondents also talked about the need for long-term parking, which was mentioned by Councillor Crosling. Now, I'm not sure if everyone's done the maths here, but I looked at a caravan towed by a ute in front of our shop, and a long-term car park essentially takes up 3 normal car parks. So if we were to establish, say, 5 new long-term car parks in the town, we're taking away 15 current car parking spaces. In addition to that, there are 17 parks being used all day by people either working or shopping in Ormerod Street, and we lose those 17 car parks if it's taken over by the private sector. So is there a parking problem now? Maybe not, but that's 32 car parks gone very quickly. That's without the town growing. 41 new public car parks in the centre of town will encourage new business to invest in retail and services, and it will also provide the public a central place to park and walk to various shops and various businesses. We want to encourage people to park centrally and walk, not park once, move, park a second time and move. That will also assist the elderly and the elderly people in public with prams and mobility scooters as a central place to create safe crossings for both Smith and Ormerod Street. If we do not invest in rejuvenating the town centre and provide a central car parking to support businesses in Smith Street, and any new businesses that might come to town may likely move elsewhere, like out of the town centre. For example, a supermarket or a chain of stores where there is more free parking. And we've seen that in other towns, as I've mentioned before. A large retailer.
If you just summarise, please.
Yep. So, in summary, I would say that it sends the right message to investors and stakeholders that we're serious about growth and getting ahead of the problem rather than reacting to it when there is a problem in the future. Thank you, Mayor Ross and councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Any further discussion? Councillor Maguire, I'll grant you leave. It is important that when you actually move and second a motion, that you actually speak to it at that time, but I grant you leave. Yep.
It doesn't actually matter what Councillor Turner has actually said. The community has spoken, and it's as high a vote as what the yes/no vote was nationally. And we are obligated to the community to actually listen to that. Where do we go to as a council from here if we do not listen to this consultation? Before we went to it, Councillor Goodman said, I'd like to go to consultation to hear what the community's got to say. They've spoken. Councillor Turner actually said, when he put the motion through without notice, a $1.6 million spend, and it got through, that I just want it to go to consultation. Consultation has spoken. So if we vote against this motion and against the community, do we never have a public consultation again? Is the strat plan that we've just done, all the consultation we've done for all our planning, it's irrelevant because as a council, we're showing the community that we're not going to listen to them anyway. So no matter what facts Councillor Turner has put in front of us, the community has overwhelmingly said they do not want us to purchase that building, and I will be calling a division.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Councillor Grundy.
Thank you, Ross. I think Councillor Turner should be congratulated for driving this idea with such passion. It's great to see a councillor get a concept like this up. Regarding the lack of parking, and is there a lack of parking or isn't there, I think that our Rejuve plan probably acknowledges that there's a lack of parking in that we've been looking for solutions to a lack of parking. And I think what this debate has lacked so far is what are our solutions going forward from parking. There's nothing really firmed up. We talked about angle parking in Ormerod Street, which seems to have been scotched on the back of can't eat into the lawn section of the parks and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that that's been lacking. And I think Councillor Turner was going to make some points also about the Rejuve plan. There were, I think, $3.5 million set aside for parking and whatnot. I just don't think, can I change the topic a little bit? I've been speaking with a number of people, and in my experience, people have either been ambiguous or against it. And like I say, I don't know what's going to happen here tonight, but I think that council should, if it fails, if the purchase doesn't go ahead, I think council should look to firm up its position on what the solutions are in the short term, with a view to, if the property is still available in the future, in the first quarter of next calendar year, maybe revisit it. I don't know what's going to happen here tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. Councillor Goodman.
I'm going to speak to second the position of Councillor Turner. There's been a lot of focus on a current parking perceived problem or not, and my position on this isn't about a current parking problem, it's about the future parking problem, and as said, getting ahead of the curve. I think that the purchase of this site presents a unique opportunity for council that may not ever come up again, and so if we purchase that site, we will control the land from this council office and across all the way through the parklands, that bank building, the town hall and the library, which I think is a very valuable and powerful piece of land to have. I think that it addresses a whole lot of parking issues that have been raised time and again about access to the town hall and the library, and it's a very neat solution for that. I think it's also valuable to think about this as the opportunity cost. And so whilst $1.2 million is a lot of money right now, and I note that there's been talk about the impacts on the long-term financial plan, I'd like to say that this is not an opportunity that we can defer for 10 years' time. This is an opportunity that we need to take now or potentially not have again. And so being able to land on this now is very valuable, because if we, in 5 years' time, decide we do have a parking problem and we're looking for ways of remedying that, I would suggest that we won't get a parcel of land that's in such a good location, and it will also cost us a lot more money. So with those things in mind, I think that this would be a good purchase to consider. I think also consultation is valuable, and it's worth remembering that there are lots of different forms of consultation. And we did have a lot of response through the online consultation. I would note that in my reading of those responses, there are a lot of people who didn't understand the car parking that was on offer here, and therefore the value per park, and they latched on to not misinformation, but information that didn't provide the whole story. And so I think that when we talk about response to consultation, that's one form of consultation, and there's others which is about the feedback that you receive within the community. And I note that we've all probably received different experiences to that, but mine has been that once explained and talked about, the majority of people came on board with the idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. Councillor Rayner.
I think that the council's obligated to purchase that land. The time that I've been on council, we've spent over $2 million on the town hall, never provided any parking. We just built a library and actually took parking away, and I think that our council now is obligated to purchase some land to provide parking in this CBD.
Councillor Rayner. Councillor Ireland.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Look, I'd just like to agree with some of the statements from Councillor Turner and Councillor Grundy and Councillor Goodman tonight. If I can just add, certainly I think it's a strategic to be looking ahead 10, 20 years down the track, 30 years down the track, when parking becomes an issue, we need to have an answer for it. And I think this parcel of land would certainly answer that question. And I'm sorry to revisit it, but in the long-term financial plan, we had $4 million on the short Jones Street to be spent across the squares there. Well, if that ANZ was purchased and turned into parking, I mean, it may be possible to close Jones Street rather than spend $4 million on it. So there's other options down the track if that purchase goes ahead.
Councillor
Please.
Maguire.
The comments on the $4 million spend, we've just explained through Mrs Edmonds that it is a wish list. It can't be a headline that council are going to spend $4 million. It has never been a motion moved. So let's not play with figures, Councillor Ireland. We have never moved a motion to spend $4 million.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Point taken.
Just, could I clarify that?
No, you can't. It's of course.
You are allowed to clarify.
It's in the 2024-25 budget of 3.96
We have not moved that budget, Councillor Turner. We haven't even...
It's in the
Sorry.
We endorsed it tonight.
Sorry, we have not gone anywhere
Thank you.
near that subject.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ireland. You completed?
Thank you, Mayor Ross.
Thank you.
Yeah, guys.
Councillor Ross. Thank you.
I support the motion that's put up there. What I do say though, that motion does not say that we don't investigate other options or continue to investigate the options with parking and that sort of thing going forward. It's interesting with the consultation that we keep talking about, the option of Normans wasn't there when that consultation occurred. So I would believe that the consultation figures would actually be significantly higher for the no if there was if the Normans was an option there to be discussed. So I believe that, you know, since we've done that consultation, there's been other options that have potentially come up, and I think they're worth investigating. The price is too high. So from a business perspective, if you're going to be buying that and developing it, you know, by the time we finish paying it off, because the suggestion was a loan that we look at taking it out, you know, we're going to be looking at spending over the time of 15 years, $2.2 million to 2.3. So, you know, is that block of land that's been reduced from a building to a car park going to be worth that? Yes, I understand the strategic thinking in regards to parking and that sort of thing, but the town centre redo plan that the community provided highlighted Smith Street and Ormrod Street as areas where they wanted some parking or looking at potential changes to our structure. In regards to the building going forward, of the ANZ building, their businesses will always evolve in our community. We see the constant change of building, of premises being operated at, and then there'll be businesses that close, but then there'll be businesses that pick up and replace them. So it's just an ever-changing landscape of what the business community is going through, and it happens everywhere. So I would say the price of what was on offer was probably also a hindrance for people putting their hand up to have a go at buying it as well. So who's to say that if the prices were actually looked at being reduced, that they might be filled by a business going there. We know for a fact there's been organisations that have looked at it. We also understand that some of those were government organisations as well. We're wanting to pitch our community as being a regional hub. That would be a perfect building still to be there for fit for purpose that can still be used for an organisation that may want to come in and use our town centre as a regional, as their building. So to remove that out, you're going to be then, if people are going to look at buildings going forward, they're going to potentially go further out, which will actually stretch our building, our town precinct out. So I think I acknowledge the sentiment of the community, and I believe we need to be following it. And I'm not saying that by saying no here means we're not going to continue to look at it. It's not saying at this stage. We've got the get-out clause to actually pause us and allow us to look at this. Is the community consultation come back and said no? Okay, so we can decline the offer, but it doesn't mean that we don't actually put it to bed. We could still look at investigating it and look at all the other options that occur around that have come up since the initial consultation. So I think let's be smart about it. We all acknowledge that there's things that we want to see done in our town centre, and I think you'll find all of us want to see it thrive and go ahead. So I think good debate that's occurred here tonight, but I believe my view is that we don't proceed with the purchase and we go with the recommendation as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Dalby.
Mr Mayor, I don't expect what I say is going to sway anybody's ideas on what they're already thinking, but it's been said for, excuse me, for quite some time that there's a problem with parking in Narracourt. Whether it's real or perceived, it's up to people and their own opinions. If the building is to be bought as offices, those people are going to obviously park their car at their office, so that those parks would be lost. So it's not off. The opportunity has arisen where we can step forward, as Councillor Rayner had said, and address the parks that were lost by developments by council. So that can be addressed. Also, it was mentioned about the long vehicle parking. Obviously, they're going to look at wanting those places be close to town so that people can access the community. So again, it's been said that that'll take away from parking as well. So here we've got the opportunity to put it there. Okay, it's a lot of money now, there's no doubt about that. I think it's something that, well, I don't think, I know it's something that we have an opportunity to do, take it on and give the retailers within the community opportunity for people to park there and access their buildings. And that's another thing. There was that's what it was. This is outside the square completely. An engineer said the other day, it also gives the opportunity for somebody down in the future to put another story on top of it and then extend that back over Bank Place, back towards the toilets, and that'll give you 100 parks there. So we're certainly not looking at that at the moment, but it's just another thought bubble. But I will be against that and supporting the purchase. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Downer. Councillor Dennis.
I'd just like to commend the debate. I think it's a credit to everyone, the preparation they've done in this is a very important strategic decision for our community. I'd like to, as I said in my opening statement, commend the idea. I think the public consultation is clear. I think it's our financial priorities are elsewhere as far as our spend goes, and I look forward to an unbiased presentation of the outcome of tonight presented in the community.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. All members have had the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much for the debate. I now put the motion that the council, moved by Councillor Dennis, seconded Councillor Maguire, the council does not proceed with the purchase of 99 Smith Street, Narracourt. All those in favour of the motion? Those against? It is drawn.
Can I call a division before your casting vote, Mayor, or I don't know how it works?
I mean, put on the last screen.
Because it doesn't matter, the community...
Councillor Maguire, you can call a division, absolutely. But excuse me for the debate, but there hasn't been a decision made as yet.
But I would like the community to see the five against and the 5 for, but that's your decision. Can I call a division now, before you have the casting?
Division is normally held once the motion is completed, and I vote for the motion. The motion is carried.
I'll call a division, please.
A division. Those in favour, please stand, including myself. No, yes, I suppose I do. So we have, can you record those, Jana? We have Councillor Ross, Councillor Crosling, Councillor Maguire, Councillor Grundy, Councillor Dennis, and there was a, what do we call it now? A casting vote. Casting vote by the Mayor in favour of the motion. Those against, please stand. Thank you very much. Yes. Okay, just for the record, I had the casting vote on that motion, and my vote was for the motion. Thank you. Next on the agenda, who's in charge of this one? Mr. Willsmore.
Well, thank you. Just wanted to acknowledge Councillor Goodman, Councillor Crosling's comments about staff's assistance with the storm event, and the CFS and SES for their support and communication during and post the event. And then further to my report, we had a number of events recently. Task Force 72, the organiser of Task Force 72 wanted me to pass on his thanks to council for the facility we provide, and also acknowledged the new shade structures, new gazebos and widening of the fence that we've undertaken as the first stage of the master plan. He was very, very appreciative of the work council have done funding and upgrading that area.
Thank you. Mr. Willsmore, any questions? No. Mr. McCroskey, 14.2.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. As per my report, the Francis Community Plan and the Lucenau Master Plan is tracking well. We've seen the initial first draft of those. We're hoping to have a report or a workshop early in the new year. Towards the end of my report, you'll also see that council undertook the removal of a dwelling on 18 Fifth Avenue. Whilst it's not common practice for council to undertake this work, we've received some positive feedback from the community with the removal of that dwelling for those adjoining neighbours.
Any questions from Mr. McCroskey? Thank you for your report. Okay, there we go. Would someone like to move that Mr. McCroskey is approved as the Assessment Manager for the Northern Limestone Coast Regional Assessment Panel? Councillor Goodman, Councillor Crosling. Obviously, Mr. McCroskey's up for this job. Yes.
I don't have to be.
I think that was more that you were willing
All
rather
those in
than
favour
you
of the
were.
recommendation? Carried. Thank you, Mr. McCroskey, for volunteering. No. Community engagement. Mrs. Collins, have you got anything to add?
No, nothing further. Thank you, Mayor Ross.
Thank you, Mrs. Collins. Any questions of Mrs. Collins? Being none. Oops. Publications, LGA subscription. Oh, keep disappearing. What have we got? Got anything to add there?
That's for information.
Yep.
Any questions?
That's what I thought. LGA releases, we've got all those, thank you. And we have questions with notice from Mr. Grundy. And they have been responded to, Mr. Grundy.
I think that satisfies my question. I was really looking for what the financial impost is on the ratepayers for this matter, as well as what are the implications for Crown and council-owned land as an open question.
Just a question to help me understand it. We must have had a gain, did we, by renegotiating a bit of electricity for town lighting and stuff? That must be. Was there a gain that offsets this cost at some point? I mean, I don't know the history of it, but
Later on.
Oh, you helped.
That's in confidence, that one.
Oh, okay.
Strike it from the record.
Sorry. Yeah. Sitting in the back of my mind. So
Thank you, Councillor.
I knew it was there for a reason.
Thank you. Thanks for your question, Councillor Grundy. So, yeah, there has been, as you would note, a bit of cost. 21-22 has been a lot of the discovery process. So, council staff had to work through a lot of, I guess, working through our Crown lands under our care and control. Councils generally hold better records than the state has on what the past occupation, tenure, etc. is. So if we relied on the state, they could quite easily determine that native title hadn't been extinguished, where quite often it can be demonstrated by us that it has been. And there's been a number of properties that we have care and control that may well be leased, used by other bodies that we've already established that in agreement with the native title claimants, and there's a number of properties that are still in question that will then get worked through over time. So, there's probably money well spent to protect our councils and our community bodies' interest in the various bits of land.
Councillor Goodman.
Just a question about the costs there. Are they expenditure that we have paid to other agencies or organisations, or is that the cost of the value that we have undertaken within council by our staff?
So that's payment that we've made to our legal representative, but not to any other body. So native title claimants will have their own cost, the state will have their own cost, and we have our own cost in determining our property holdings.
Any further questions? Thank you. Motions with notice. You're withdrawing, Councillor Ireland?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Ross. I wish to withdraw both my motions at this point. Thank you for Mr Smart for letting me know that the Town Hall was actually booked out with the period for the putting our notice in. And hopefully I can revisit this notice in a month's time.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Questions without notice? Motions without notice. I have ladies first.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Goodman.
You put your hand up first, but
Thank you, Councillor Maguire.
It's got to that point in the meeting. Thank you. Yes, I would like to put a motion without notice. Last weekend we had yet another accident at the Avenue Crossroad, Avenue Range Road and the Crower Mini Crower Road. I think this becomes the third in about 18 months. I understand that the Avenue Range Road is a DIT road, but the Mini Crower Road is a council managed road, and that is the road where people are required to stop and give way. So the motion I'd like to put is that council receive a report detailing the cost of installing rumble strips on both sides of Crower Road and the Mini Crower Road at the intersection with Avenue Range Road.
Thank you.
I'll forward that to you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman.
I'm satisfied to second that.
Can we just seek some clarification from Mr Willsmore, and I also can add to that from a ministerial perspective as well?
Yes. Mr Willsmore.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been raised with DTI, Department of Infrastructure and Transport. Previously, they did do an assessment of it, and believe they've duplicated some signs down there. So Councillor Goodman is correct. Mini Crow Road is a council road. However, DTI did have the responsibility of the traffic management of the intersection. So we can still provide a cost for the rumble strips, but we'll also liaise with DIT on their assessment of it. And yes, I'll leave any ministerial comments to Councillor Crossley.
Councillor Crossley.
Just going to add, in my day job, working
This is
for
not confidential.
Nick McBride, we have been had people come in regarding the intersection, and a ministerial letter has been written to DIT, which I can get a copy to council. I'm sure it is just stating that they will not install rumble strips, which is exactly what we asked for, because the same thing, someone nearly witnessed a near miss there a few months ago, due to the fact that there isn't the data there because of has been the amount of accidents. Apparently you have to have 8 accidents before they do something about it. They were going to install some I think 80 kilometre an hour signs, but they will not install rumble strips. But if we can approach them, I can't see one council couldn't ask.
Thank
please.
you, Councillor Crosling, and I would assume that you're talking about the Avenue Road and not about the Mini Crow Road.
No, it was the Mini Crow Road.
Okay.
It was ours.
Anyway, I'm sure that we'll be able to get some clarification.
Councillor Grundy already seconded, I think.
Yes, Councillor Grundy has seconded it, yes.
All right, okay.
I will grant you leave.
Okay, thank you. Look, I think it's important, and we're asking for a report only, so it's not War and Peace or anything, so I think that that's a completely reasonable request, and it'll be the start of a conversation maybe with some lobbying.
Advocating.
Is there any further discussion? One wonders how many accidents need to happen on some of these black spot roads, or even worse, before a state government will act, and I think that should be highlighted in any advocacy. I put the motion that Council receive a report detailing the cost of installing rumble strips on both Crower and Mini Crow Road at the intersection of Avenue Range, it's actually Avenue Road. All those in favour? Carried, thank you very much. Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in light of Ben Crosby's presentation and speaking to other people, and before I move the motion, I again just want to support how well our drainage has worked in certain areas, but the motion just involves, I'd like to read out the council administration provide a report to council to summarise the opportunities and challenges from the recent rain event on Friday the 24th November 2023. And just speaking to that, it would be silly not to look at where there was cracks and problems and actually just have council come back to us if there's any areas that can be fixed that we can work with.
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Councillor Ross, would you like to speak? Thank you. Councillor Dennis.
Through you, Mayor Ross, to Mr Willsmore, is this common, should be a common practice by the council anyway, wouldn't it, after such an event?
Yes, thank you. We do our internal debriefs. We held a debrief with CFS and SES on Saturday after the event, so we'll do that internally, but we can provide a report as per the motion if it gets passed.
So, Councillor Dennis, this will reply a report to council. Thank you, Mr Willsmore. Any further discussion? Being none, I put the motion that the council administration provide a report to council to summarise the opportunities and challenges from the recent rain event on Friday the 24th of November 23. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much.